niġu bil-PC tagħna u l-monitor fih daqsiex għas missieri ma kien jifilħu. Ħanerġa' ninsa għax weħlet li ma nistax kif ukoll. Wasal iż-żmien li nħolqu programm dedikat tal-esports. Programm fejn ħanitkellmu fuq ħafna affarijiet, edukazzjoni, saħħa, l-industrija tax-xogħol, però l-iktar ħaġa importanti li nippromovu l-esports pajjiżna għaliex intom kapaċi. Mela tinsewniex, esports plus. niġu bil-PC tagħna u l-monitor fih daqsiex għas missieri ma kien jifilħu. Ħanerġa' ninsa għax weħlet li ma nistax kif ukoll. Wasal iż-żmien li nħolqu programm dedikat tal-esports, programm fejn ħanitkellmu fuq ħafna affarijiet, edukazzjoni, saħħa, l-industrija tax-xogħol, però l-iktar ħaġa importanti li nippromovu l-esports pajjiżna għaliex intom kapaċi. Mela tinsewniex, esports plus.
Six weeks, 7 races, and by the end of it, one driver is going to end up as the World Pro Racing Sprint Series champion for 2022. So that's, of course, a competizione de place, and this is going to be somewhat of a spectacle to see, be it on ESTV, the esports television network, on TVM Sport with motorsport.tv, and of course across all platforms being YouTube and Facebook as well as Twitch. I'm Jake Sperry, Kieran McGinley along for the ride. Today marks the beginning. It's the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps and the ultimate all-around circuit, Kieran. There is not a circuit in the world that does all styles of racing to the level that this track does. It's going to be difficult to break away today, and it's going to be a complete showcase for what this sprint series is all about.
Absolutely. 4 meters and 7 kilometers worth of Ardennes forest goodness. Yes, Spa-Francorchamps, obviously halved from its massive behemoth 15-kilometer track all the way back in the early 60s and 70s, where the Master Kink was a corner you really have to fear. But now it's been whittled down to just over that 7 kilometers. It's obviously a driver favorite, a fan favorite, and of course, such corners as Eau Rouge, up the crest, the blind crest of Radion, and you've got the rest of the circuit undulating your way through the forest. It's a fantastic circuit, provides fantastic racing whenever we come here.
And it truly is a marvel to watch and is a staple on the endurance calendar with the fabled 24 hours of Spa, which has its traditional spot moved for next year, but still an incredible showcase always when we get to it. But this is the Sprint Series. So what are we in for? What are we understanding today? So for every race that goes forward, this will be happening every 2 weeks, starting here today, the 30th of September, and moving to the final round of the 9th of December. It's going to be 30 minutes worth of practice, 15 minutes worth of qualifying, and then 30 minutes worth of race. But the big difference is the final round of the championship, which will be a 2-race showcase, which I think is going to be crucial. 2 lots of 30-minute races. And just to go through the calendar here, Kieran, you start off here at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. It couldn't get more different in the fact we head to Alton Park as our second track. We then head to Imola round 3, Kyalami in South Africa round 4, Circuit of the Americas round 5. And what about this? A double header at Mount Panorama to finish.
That sounds like a great calendar to me. An eclectic mix of tracks there. You've got some narrow, Alton Park, Imola, one of the highest speed circuits on the calendar. You've got Kyalami, always a great for GT drivers alike. Kota with its fantastic S section at the very beginning of the lap, testing the limits of adhesion. And then, of course, you've got Mount Panorama right there with those walls all the way around you. The behemoth returns. I'm looking forward. Let's just get stuck into this calendar. I'm looking forward to it, Jake.
Yeah, there's so much that's going to go on. There's going to be an incredible race. But there is also a tactical element to talk about here, Kieran. Of course, when it comes to GT3 racing in the Assetto Corsa Competizione, it's got the widest array of GT3 cars I think you can find on any sim out there. But the big key about that is, with so many cars, what car do you choose? You're not locked into a car for the season. In fact, it's quite the opposite. You may only use one car twice, so you've got to drive 5 different vehicles at least over the course of this season.
Absolutely, and that is something that the drivers are going to have to think about. They're going to have to play their, well, car cards strategically. Which car is going to be best for me at this circuit? And we're going to see quite the mix-up over the next few weeks, over the next months as well, as to which drivers feel most comfortable with which car. And it also stops the driver from just jumping into the same car every single time. They have to, as you say, go with a few range of car models, car makes as well. Maybe they have to go with a manufacturer that they're not quite familiar with, or they don't really prefer. And that's going to be a little bit of a challenge just to spice it up, as if it needed any more spicing up here.
Absolutely. You got choices of McLarens and Audis. There are BMWs and Porsches, Lamborghinis, Aston Martins, Bentleys, Ferraris, Hondas and Lexuses. This is an incredible choice that drivers have and this opportunity to go out and push forward. But hopefully we'll be jumping in, keeping an eye out on what practice is going to be looking like as we take the challenge at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, and truly a legendary name when it comes to racetracks. And that, I'm sure, is going to be fantastic. If you haven't had a chance already, you're here for the first time, you're watching, so be it, over on television, or you are watching through the joys of the internet out there overall, you always have the opportunity to head over to WPR.gg, worldproracing.gg. That gives you the opportunity to sign up for any events that come up in the future, not platform restricted. And on top of that, there is a €1,000 prize pool here for this tournament, as well as this championship powered by ESTV is going to be a really important showcase of just how adaptable a driver has to be, and really a proof, Kieran, that esports as a whole, when it comes to sim racing, this really does hit the esports element. You couldn't do this sort of event when it comes to the real world. The budget would be astronomical.
Yes, it would. And trying to have to sign with a manufacturer, possibly every single race, that's always a little bit of red tape involved. We get rid of that in sim racing, which is fantastic. You can just jump into a car and a make. You don't need a contract. Absolutely fantastic. And you just get to run loose on so many different tracks. You get to literally globetrot from the comfort of your own sim rig. And if sim rigs are comfortable there, which they should be, then you just get to have a great time worth of racing. It's fast-paced, only, of course, 15 minutes of qualifying with a half-hour race. But as you said, when we head to Mount Panorama, that'll be a double header of 30-minute races. I'm thoroughly looking forward to this, and hopefully we're going to sneak peek of those drivers out in practice. And having a look through the driver lineup here, Jake, it's fair to say you and I have seen some of these names before. They are stonewall in World Pro Racing. Very recognizable names returning once again.
And while there are quite a few drivers who are returning and looking to try and put themselves up at the top and show exactly what they're capable of, there are also some new drivers added to the list who are looking to try their hand when it comes to World Pro Racing. This is a series which is open for veterans, so to speak, and newcomers. And on top of that, it is I would say a community that really gives you the opportunity to go out there and to understand what it is to race in a professional sim racing environment, because it's not just the fact, Kieran, that you're out there racing with other people and you're looking to try and be the fastest possible. There is also the stewarding aspect of a series like this, which really does make a big appeal to a lot of people when a lot of sim racing out there goes unregulated.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, every single event here at World Pro Racing has behind it FIA qualified, FIA standard stewards who live steward the race as it happens, can apply the penalties as and when they choose. And of course, that is going to be something that's going to be, well, reiterated in the first briefing of this season, which has concluded. And I think the drivers are in for practice, so we'll be able to join them trackside very, very soon. But yes, as you say, that sort of aspect that you get with live stewarding there is somebody watching you. There is a race control where you can report anything you want to the stewards. That sense of it as well really adds to that persona of racing here, and it just makes it more immersive, which is always a plus wherever you go.
It certainly does, and we find ourselves now with practice available at this point in time. A lot of time remaining, actually, on the practice clock. 33 minutes out there as things stands, and this is Nikolai Akilana, who is out there at the moment and is flying around the circuit, looking to try and put as good of a time at the moment on in the BMWs. Currently on the top as things stands, and I'm sure that Akilana will be looking to try and just make life easy just in the early throws of practice. Not everybody is out there and sets time, just the 5 times out there at the moment. Dylan De Bono out there in the Ferrari 517 in second position, and third will be the number 20 of Bernard Bonello in third position overall. So it looks like, at least in the early stages, haven't seen too many times out there, but Bernard Bonello at this moment here, the Maltese driver, using all of the road there, coming out to the campus corner and into the right of Stavolo, which leads this final sector, this important run to Blanchimont, and of course, that fabled final chicane.
It's the fabled final chicane. You very well put there, Mr. Sperry. On through Blanchimont goes Bernard Bonello as he now makes his way onwards towards that final chicane, hard onto the anchors. It's one of the slowest parts of the circuit. Then it's followed by the slowest part of the circuit, down in towards the source. But Bonello will put the power down in the MLT Ferrari, crosses the line and goes to the top of the timings. A 2:18.6 from Bonello in the number 20 Ferrari.
So a good time then to start, and certainly no qualms about that. That was exactly what the doctor ordered early on, and there are going to be differences in terms of how drivers look and feel around a circuit like this, and we've got a very wide spread when it comes to manufacture. Ferrari seems the most populous, that much we can certainly say out there, but after the Ferraris, you know, you've got a smattering of BMWs. Honda goes to the top with Sheldon Muscat. Now, Sheldon had a fantastic showcase when it came to the Maltese National Championships, really gave a good showcase out there for GT Omega RPM Esports. Finds himself right now topped by 0.4 of a second, so a good opening lap time, and these times are only going to get quicker and quicker. The track feels fast out there, and it's cool weather conditions, 17 degrees on track, air and track temperature.
Absolutely, as we see then Sheldon Muscat making his way all the way down now in towards the, well, I say first chicane. Technically, Eau Rouge Radion is a chicane, but there we go. Through Malmedy goes Sheldon Muscat, and one of the great things as well is that liveries as well. There is a livery deadline for submission. It was on Wednesday, so that everything could be finalised, all the packages could be sent out and everything, all those glorious things, and to also make sure that the liveries are all okay. And they work, and they do work, so that's fantastic to see. But that adds another element as well, that you can just pretty much make the car as your own, build your own identity. That's another, just a small element here that really adds to the series as well.
Yeah, identity is certainly important, that these drivers are able to showcase off their teams, or maybe just want to show off a bit of good artwork on their car. Sometimes drivers pick up something from someone else, and there's a wide community of car livery designers, and really that's added into a lot of what we've seen in motorsport. I can remember as one car exit stage left there coming out of Stavolo. That was not ideal in the circumstances. That is the number 59 car that has ended up in a world of trouble there. So that will be Aldi Devanagraha there, the Indonesian, in a bit of trouble. So that's definitely not ideal. Here's a driver to keep an eye out on, Luke Whitehead, always near the front, currently in a very, very pink Honda at this point in time. We're looking to get the most out of it. But Kieran, we've seen, especially in motorsport, how livery design in the last 10 years has really benefited from sim racing. The fact that you can trial out how a livery looks out there on the sims, and a lot of the design features and elements that have come along from sim livery design has bled its way into how most teams build their liveries.
Yeah, and it's a fantastic way to see how it actually looked out on track in certain weather conditions, as we see Luke Whitehead then start a new flying lap. He makes his way down in towards La Source, and yeah, absolutely, it gives you a chance to really get into the stages of how it looks, what the car will look like if you put this certain livery on. And of course, it's a little bit of a trial as well, because if you've got sponsors as well to put them onto the car, well, does your sponsor like the livery? Does it sort of bleed into the sponsor logo? They don't really appreciate that normally, but that's another thing to try as well. So really, as you say, it has benefited sim racing entirely.
It really has, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of work as on the brakes now up to the highest sector of the circuit. The 14 car bringing out yellow flags. They're just stopping on circuit, so that's Sheldon Muscat there in the gravel. Not ideal for Luke Whitehead as he now crests the rise, the top, as he now goes through the long right of Bruxelles and now searching for the next left-hander out on circuit. Corner without a name, and it's had many guises over the years moving forward. Still descending through into this middle sector, and here's a look at Luke Whitehead here, moving now in the van shirt through the double apex left then of double gauche and searching for as much drive in this middle sector. Does make car choice difficult here, this circuit, especially when you consider here, Kieran, the fact that you've got those fast first and third sectors, but that middle sector takes a lot of time out.
It does. It is a circuit that really does challenge your setup and how good you are at making the car work the best you possibly can. Do you prioritise the car for the high-speed sections, such as Les Combes and Malmedy, through Blanchimont? You've got to have as much downforce there as possible. But you don't want to leave yourself a sitting duck down the Kemmel Straight. It's still a very, very long straight down towards Les Combes and Malmedy. You do not want to really shoot yourself in the foot before you've even started by putting too much air on the car and causing yourself too much drag. It really is a fine art to get it right around this circuit, but when you get it right, boy does it feel good.
It really, really does. And wouldn't it, Kieran, be up the Kemmel Straight, considering it's uphill?
That's very true, very true.
I always have that as a pet peeve when it comes through, that people say down to for everything when there is up and down when it comes to a racetrack. So it does get in the back of my mind a little bit. Luke Whitehead, by the way, 1.3 seconds quicker than anybody else in practice. So his time in number 21 has just blitzed the timing sheet at this moment in time. And it's very important to see how great we've got old drivers, new drivers coming in looking to prove what they've got, and I'm sure a lot of drivers are looking to push. There's Hannah Indiana in the pits, the Norwegian driver. Now, she'll be one of two female drivers out there. The other one is Asuka Shikanami, who is out there very early in the morning racing out there from Japan. And Asuka Langley, that's a reference to Neon Genesis Evangelion, if ever I've seen one. But ultimately, it's going to be a very, very important race for them out there. Two female drivers out there in the field. And at the moment, Hannah finds herself P10 on the scoreboards, 3.5 seconds adrift. That's not too bad, all things considered.
I think as well, when it comes to practice, it always a bit of a guessing game. You never really know if a driver's put 100% into the lap, what sort of fuel loads they're running, what tyres they're running as well. Yes, it's a 30-minute sprint race, but some of these drivers might actually be putting 30 minutes worth of fuel in the car, just double checking their fuel loads. Where can they start saving fuel? How much time does it lose? All of these things really do add up in the final practice session so that you can give yourself as much data as possible. I think I remember one of the esports drivers in the F1 esports series was talking about how to be one of the top level drivers, you have to be on top of everything. Not only do you have to drive the car fast, but you've got to be on top of your strategy. You have to be on top of your setup as well. You have to know exactly how the car behaves. And if you're one step ahead, if you know how much fuel you use per lap, and you know at one point you can save some fuel and lose minimal time, as you can see Edward Law get very, very close to the wall on the run down towards Eau Rouge and Radion. Rather that wing mirror is someone else and not me. But this is the thing. This is the time to practice. Once you get all that data as a sim racer, you've got that on your side. You can already go one step ahead of your opposition.
And there's just a little look as well from Edwin Law as he uses that Lamborghini trying to find a pass as he goes through. This is where you've got to try and understand where a car has a strength and where a car has a weakness. Down the hill, looking to push now and try and find a way through in this practice session. A lot of drivers will be trying to get an understanding of what their machinery is going to be all about, and this is the only Lamborghini out there at this point in time, and has just dropped down to 9th fast, the likes of Oscar Saristo, the Finnish driver, moving up into 5th position. Sneaks down the inside of the 3-2-1 car there to get that move sorted, and that 3-2-1 belongs to Claven Sturgeon-Delia, so that a comfortable overtake through, so very nicely done. Everyone is going to be looking to push and try and get what they want. Hot Pink Racing, there's Nathan Mifsud, who is going to be trying to get as much pace out of that McLaren as possible. I haven't seen, we've got about 4 McLarens here, and the McLaren, I think, has got one thing in mind, Kieran, which is straight line. So, a lot of focus then here, 23 minutes remaining in practice, and you'll see as well here, you've got the mini-map on the right-hand side of your screen. That will indicate where everybody is out on circuit, so if there's a driver you want to pay attention to, that is exactly where they are out on track. And when you look over to the timing tower, there are going to be some interesting points to keep in mind as you go through. There will be a bar right next to the names, which will increase the longer that a driver is out on track. For the first 4 laps, that will be an indicator of consistency value of a generation over in free practice. The more time that you have in that, the more that's generated. And on top of that, you'll see different colours on the numbers, or the backgrounds behind the numbers, depending on who is where. There is Oscar Saristo at the moment for the Carbon Fox Racing Ferrari at this point in time. Now, drivers will be looking at what they're doing, and they will get assigned a rating for how much they have raced online on Assetto Corsa Competizione here, Kieran. And the white box indicates pro. There's silver categories, and there are AM categories as well, like Daryl Martinelli, number 22, red number, AM category.
That's very harsh to point out there, but yes, very true. Yes, Martinelli is the only AM out there, as we've got Claven Sturgeon-Delia, who stopped in the team FNF Ferrari and has come back to the pit. There's Gergely Kun-Sabo, the ever Hungarian presence in World Pro Racing, making his way in the minimum effort racing team Audi down the hill in towards Eau Rouge and then up Radion. What a corner this is, and if you ever get a chance to go to Spa-Francorchamps, you have to stand right at the bottom of Eau Rouge, and then you fully understand how steep the ascent is towards Radion. You're climbing a mountain and the apex is completely blind, absolutely completely blind. You are really relying on the marshals there with the yellow flag. If something goes wrong, you are totally dependent on them at that stage. And we see Kunsaba make his way now down towards Boissel. And there is also another driver I'm really looking forward to seeing today. That's the number 54. He's in a Porsche. It's Dean Vella. Now, of course, if you've been watching along with the Malta National Championship that World Pro Racing was running, you'll know that he won the competition. He will be representing Malta at the Motorsport Games in France. There he is in the number 54. I mean, he was absolutely brilliant in the series, wasn't he, Jake?
Yeah, he was, and he certainly turned up and put all the time and effort in that got him to a position where he could go out there, could attack compared to other drivers, and booked his place quite comfortably in the end with the way that he was driving. But Porsche, certainly not a car that everyone has thought would be the one to be selected. Maybe the Porsche would be a more likeable approach out there, Kieran, to a track like Alton Park, which comes up round 2 on the calendar, as maybe that top end isn't quite as much there in the Porsche compared to other drivers. But Dean's got a plan, and he's certainly going to stick to it. And this would be an important time to get some pace in. Still 2.1 seconds adrift at this moment in time. Currently classified in 7th position in this practice session with just under 20 minutes to go to make sure that everyone's times are logged and everyone feels comfortable with the times that they've got out there on circuit. But this is really that feeling out process, and for a Porsche to be out there, we haven't seen too much, and just going second fastest, just saw it there, is the Czech driver Wojtek Neuwirth, who has just piloted that McLaren up there, and that's a little bit confusing there to drive a McLaren and have your team name as Aston Martin enjoyers. It seems almost a little bit like false advertising.
Well, I mean, the McLaren is stylised like an Aston Martin, so I guess you could give him that, as now he makes his way up the Kemmel Straight, as he'll have the, I think it's a Ferrari slipstream up towards the Les Combes section. We'll follow on. Yeah, the Aston Martin enjoyers McLaren. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that at all, Jay. Nothing wrong at all in my mind.
Nope, nothing wrong. You can enjoy any car you like. It's a case where that McLaren is going to have to really work out there. Ben Norton, currently third fastest overall, down in the pit lane at the moment, running in the Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo here today. So some work, and here is the New Zealander Nikolai, or with the New Zealand representative of Nikolai Aquilina, who is currently, or Aquilina I should say, who is in 11th position. Now that just shows you how quickly times can change in a practice session. Aquilina set the early pace, was the fastest driver out there, and all of a sudden has dropped all the way back down outside of the top 10 to 11th position overall. So a lot of time has been lost then in early stages from that, and the likes of Adi Satya will be another driver to keep a bit of focus on in the BMW number 13. So there will still be that element of focus to go through, as the driver in 15th position right now, Daniel Stramer, has been around for forever and 3 years when it comes to this series, is often found piloting the number 1, and this is just the look of just how much you have to work. Of course, this is a camera angle you can't get anymore here, Kieran, because when it comes to the real world, they've actually moved the barriers back.
Yes, absolutely. And so we can recreate this here in Assetto Corsa Competizione, so that's a huge bonus as well. Yeah, what a great camera shot that was, as we see Stramer tackle now in towards Les Combes, on towards Malmedy. And just having a look at all the entrants here, I think we've got 2 Audis, there's 4 BMWs. As you said, the most popular car choice for today was the Ferrari, 10 of them as far as I can count. We'll see how good at counting I am later on. We've got 3 Hondas, the only Lamborghini driven by the number 32 of Edwin Law, the McLarens, the Bolster, there's 5 of them out there, and only the 2 Porsche. So Dean Veller's joined by the 911, aptly of course numbered the 911, of Bertrand Mikulev. So there you go, Ferrari the most popular, 10 of them racing today.
Yeah, so there'll be an understanding of that Ferrari and how much balance it will have today, the 488 GT3 Evo. So that will give a lot to essentially have confidence for a lot of these drivers. When you've got a track which has many facets, you can see a Beja there for a moment tipping the car up slightly onto 2 wheels over that big curb at Radion. It's very, very easy to get yourself in a bit of trouble there, but that balance of the Ferrari is often something that goes unabated, but Beja getting a little bit wrong there up at the top there through Les Combes. It goes back, really, that Ferrari's had a long standing as they go through. One driver that I've had a chance to have a lot of talking to about how Ferrari works, Kieran, is Benny Simonson, who drives in the GT Cup Championship. And his understanding of a Ferrari is that he's driven it pretty much the entirety of his career. And you just get that understanding of a balance, and you get that look of a car, which essentially just, you turn, it turns, you put power down, it puts power down, does everything you ask of it, and then some.
Yeah, it's so good to be so in tune with the car as well, that you are one with the car. You're not just a person in the car, you're with the car, you are technically just a piece of the car, as we see Sylvie Joffert in the flat-out racing McLaren make his way up the Kemmel Straight. Absolutely, the more you drive a certain manufacturer, the more you understand that sort of affinity builds where you get comfortable, the chemistry's there with the machinery. It's almost a way that, exactly that, the more you drive it, the more used to it you'll feel. As Sylvie Joffert gets just slightly out of shape coming out of Malmö there, manages to pick it up on the descent down towards Brussels, and then make his way onwards towards the left-hander of Speaker's Corner. And if you ever wonder why it's Speaker's Corner, as you said, Jake, it's been had a couple of names over the years. We had no name. It was going to be called the X Corner after the legendary Jackie X, the Belgian driver. But of course, I think they want to go with Speaker's Corner. And that's mainly because that's where one of the circuit commentary boxes is. So that's where someone would be sitting and commentating on during the day. So there's a one for you. But it's very hidden, that commentary box. You can't actually see it. Very hidden.
Very hidden commentary box, so then it does a good job of staying out of the way of everybody else. It's a case where you go around the track and you find a place here, a place there, a place everywhere, and a chance to ply a craft, so to speak. But at least for the moment, here's Dylan de Bono, who is currently 7th fastest at this moment in time, shadowing around this circuit, trying to deal with the Porsche, but that is well out of the way, and that is a heavy accident there at Double Ghost. It's not a place you want to have a massive off, and that is part of what makes that section of track so difficult, because if you go off there, it is the most loaded point on the track, and Vela's going to find exactly the same thing. You're trying to find the limiter grip, you find the limiter grip, and it's so easy for the car to just snap the other direction.
Yeah, it's so easy for the rear wheels to start over-rotating in these cars, especially going through Buon. You think you've turned in, but you've carried a little bit too much speed, and the back end just starts to break away from you. The only problem is once you start to correct it, you're obviously in that little bit of a loop, really. You correct it, but now you're going straight on, so now you have to try and slow the car down at one of the fastest parts of the circuit. You're trying to turn in, the sort of balance of the weight shift transfers towards the right, and you're also descending as well, so that's going to have a tumultuous time for the rears as well on these cars. So it is a huge weight transfer there. You've got to have the right suspension setup. If it is too stiff, the car's too rigid, it will not bite. It will just lose control instantly. It will just say, you're having a laugh. No, I'm not doing that.
And would you say then, for two very different reasons, that there are going to be cars today that do struggle with that? And I think the big keys to look at is Bertrand Micallef shows the damage on the front nose of that Porsche. Do you think that there's going to be troubles today for the likes of the Audi drivers here and the BMW drivers for two different reasons? The Audi drivers always seem to struggle with the rear tyres because it has a shorter wheelbase out there on track, so it's very easy for the back end to step out, especially through Speaker's Corner. Down the hill is seemingly where the rears seem to have the most amount of trouble, and then conversely, the BMW is going to have the absolute opposite effect. It's going to struggle with understeer just because it is so much taller of a vehicle. There would be others. That's a lunge down the inside if ever I saw one. Can you gather it back up? Oh, you absolutely can. Nice diamonding at the corner.
Rather him than me in that Ferrari then, going through now Speaker's Corner, but making our way back onto the power, and it was almost like Micallef had to just back out of the corner itself. Now, I'm trying to work out who that was, and it might have been Castorino in the all-black Ferrari, and it is the 93 of Amedeo Castorino. So Amadeo's got to be careful with moves like that, especially heading towards the race, because other drivers are already turning in for the corner there, and I think Bertrand saw that was coming from quite a distance back.
Yes, and it takes a lot of precision to make sure that you make it through a section like that, and I'm sure that these drivers all are keeping an eye out on who they can and cannot race with when it comes to the practices. Edwin Law, the Hong Kong driver, is certainly going to be trying to push as much as possible and get as much out of this opening race as he can. So I'm sure that these drivers will all be trying to get an understanding, especially with a new championship like this, Sprint Championship 2022. Some drivers know how to race against other drivers. Other drivers won't have a clue. And it's that very quick understanding of who you can and who you cannot race with.
Yeah, and it's a very steep learning curve, but once you get there, once you understand, once you've familiarized yourself with enough races, you've got that experience under your belt, you start to work out who your true rivals are going into these races and going into this event. And once we've gone through the first 2 or 3 races, it will be more, the drivers will understand more and more who their true rivals are, as we have a new driver at the top of the timing sheet. It's Amedeo Castorino, the Italian, in the Racing Point La Soluzione Ferrari, puts it at the top of the timings, nearly a quarter of a second clear of Luke Whitehead.
Did he manage to do that whilst making a dive pass at Bruchel?
I think he did. I think he did.
I think that means there's more in the tank where that came from, because that wasn't as traditional of a line as maybe you would expect. But look at that, nice and neat, going through and down the hill. Watch as he takes the entirety of the track, as much as he possibly can, through every section as we look at this nose cam through the middle sector. This is so important for drivers as they look to try and improve on times and positions, is that you use all of the circuit you have available to you. A lot of drivers are very scared to get near the white lines and the curbs and the grass, because that's where you spin. But you have to use all of the track. You've got to take the line of least resistance if you want to effectively give yourself more time and give yourself actually better fuel mileage as you go through, because you're using less effectively, you're driving less miles out on track.
Yeah, it's a weird sort of thing to keep in the back of your mind, but you're absolutely right. That's where the thousandths of a second are won, and if you can win a couple of thousandths of a second over a lap, then that starts to build, and it builds and it builds into a lead towards the end of the race. So you're absolutely right. You have to use every bit of the track available to you, or rather what the stewards will allow you to use is probably the better terminology there. But what you can use, you have to use it. It's as simple as that if you want the fastest times out there, as Castorino then takes a wider entrance in towards the final part of the chicane to get a good exit, to get the power down earlier and get a better run down towards La Source. For Amedeo Castorino, he's on some quali sim runs.
Well, here's the thing that he'll have to keep an eye out on, though, Kieran, is the fact that you only get 5 sets of tyres per round. So that will go for practice, for qualifying, for the race that will be going on. You've only got the 5 sets of tyres. So how much do you want to practice? How much do you want to take life out of the tyres, knowing that you're trying to get in position for the race? And if something goes wrong in your race, and yes, this is an incredibly long pit lane, so you're going to be a mile back, do you want an extra spare set of tyres just in case?
Yeah, you always want a spare set of tyres, no matter what. You don't want to be, if something happens, you want the fresher set of tyres. Or if you want to go for the fastest lap, you want a fresh set of tyres towards the end. Now, it being a half-hour race, tyre wear shouldn't be too much of an issue that you have to change halfway through the race or 20 minutes in, whatever. But as you say, if you run into a bit of trouble, you stop in, you do want to change your tyres at the same time, because you're not losing anything. You're putting on a fresh set of boots, a fresh set of rubber, get yourself some faster lap times out on circuit. And then it becomes for you just that little bit of trying to rail in the car ahead. You're theoretically on fresher tyres, so you'll have more grip. That's the theory. But for me, if I was here, which luckily I'm not, thankfully for everybody out on circuit, I'm in the commentary box instead, but I'd only be using the 1 set of tyres for practice. I'd be using that as my heavy fuel loader, then running some quali sims at the end on the used tyres, because at that point you're not giving away your true pace. The car's not at the optimum that you'd be using it in the qualifying session, therefore you're not revealing your true hand. But maybe I've said too much already.
Maybe. Let's talk about points then, and how the points breakdown is going to go through the course of this series. A lot more points on offer than what is traditional on a World Pro Racing event, and that's nice to see. It's 60 points here today for a race victory, 55 for second, 50 points for third. It's 5-point increment drops down to 5th position, where 40 points is scored from there. It is 2-point increment, so from 40 it's to 38 and 36, and that increment drops down to 10th position at 30 points. From there, it's 1-point increment all the way down from 30 points, and I've got it marked down at 30 drivers is 10 points at this moment in time. So there is a lot of point increment. And in terms of prize pool breakdown as well, 300 euros for the winner, 250 euros for second, 200 euros for third, and then 4th is 100, 5th is 75, 6th is 50, and 7th position is 25 euros out there. €1,000 prize pool. And here is Sheldon Muscat looking to try and fight through Double Ghost right now in the Honda, and trying to make this middle sector work for him inside the final 5 minutes.
What a rig that is, though. How wide that monitor is. I love it. I absolutely love it. Curved as well. I rate that setup, Mr. Muscat, very highly.
It's better than my setup. My setup is legitimately an Xbox One controller, and that's about it.
I've got a desk. That's it. I don't have.
What sort of desk? That's important.
It's a wooden desk.
A wooden desk? Would you look at that?
Desk. Well, absolutely. You need it for the force feedback, don't you? You know, you hear the vibrations of the wheel against the wooden desk. It just makes sense, Jake. It just makes sense.
Makes wooden desk. Well, we'll see whether you put that to practice pretty soon. But at least for the moment, these drivers have themselves an opportunity. It's Castorino, Whitehead, Neuwirth, Norton and Muscat, your top 5. Here's John Agius out there in 9th position overall, leading Audi in the field and looking pretty comfortable, I would say, right now with that 9th position. I'm quite liking the quiet work that he's put in through with the number 25 car.
Absolutely, you know, just doing his own business in the Audi, and he'll be definitely a thorn in the side. He definitely looks hooked up with the Audi as well, which is always a great thing. John Agius there in the number 25 Sandlot Racing Audi. Yeah, looking very much on rails at the moment. 2 seconds back from Castorino, the pace setter so far, but again, it is practice. We'll take times with a pinch of salt. What's most important, though, is the likes of Bonello ahead of him, ahead by half a tenth of a second. De Bono behind by just over a tenth. You've got Dean Vella in 11th place, not too far behind. It seems like if you're looking at a position, there's a very good chance someone else is very close to that position, and that can only mean good things for a sprint race.
It only can, and I'm sure that these drivers will be looking at it and looking forward to it, so we'll see how they go. Trying to open up an overtake then on the BMW, who sails a little bit later in under braking. They're getting it all nicely slowed up before the power gets back on again, and they take that run towards the start line right now. Nikolai Aquilina there just in front in the Anger Racing BMW, going through the banked Lassource hairpin. Not many people remember the fact that it's banked, but it gives you that slingshot, really, Kieran, to go and attack the fabled crest of Eau Rouge and Radion.
Absolutely. Someone did tell John Agius that this is a practice session, didn't they? As they now head their way up the hill then. Nikolai Aquilani, I wonder if he's going to defend this position, because here comes Agius then. It is only practice, but here's a taste of what's to come. Down the Kemmel Straight, they will run side by side, with Aquilina having the inside line. Sorry, Aquilina having the inside line going in towards Les Combes. And yeah, defending. These two are practicing their racing at the moment. Don't give too much away, drivers, to your rivals. But great to see him in practice, keeping it clean. Only a handful of minutes left on the clock, and we've got a race in practice. There you go. Now I've seen it. You know, we've seen some practice, we've seen some qualifying sims, and we're now seeing some racing here as John Agius really wants to get by.
Well, that's not the traditional place to make a move. That would have been very scary through the one-line suits all speakers corner as they went through. Double ghost, the double-handed left, then follows up immediately afterwards. But this is the key. You can very easily get trap drivers essentially around this circuit. It's not the widest track in the world in places, so you've got to be alert, and they're going to have to tiptoe around, and Agius getting really close there as they wander on by and just about pivot around at that point and making sure they're going through. They are running out of time. They've got 45 seconds if they want to have the miniature victory, I would say, Kieran, at this point. But these two putting on a showcase then here in the final stages of free practice.
Absolutely. When they cross the line, they'll have one more lap as well. There they go then, through in towards Blanchimont, and now on their way up towards the final chicane as Aquilina goes, well, he looked like he wanted to go defensive there, but then decided he was going to take the racing line, and that's going to be an important factor heading into these races. They're not going to take the checkered flag. They're going to go one more time around. And just a reminder, this is practice for these drivers. No, seriously, it's practice. Down in towards La Source they will go. And as you said, that banked corner allows you to put the power down earlier. On the run now down towards Eau Rouge and Radion as the checkered flag is now waved at the start-finish line. Here comes Aquilina and, of course, the Audi then of Agius making their way both up the hill then as Aquilina gets it a little bit out of shape going up Eau Rouge and Radion then, and that is a really not a place you want to be losing the back end at all, as I think Aquilina, having lost that battle as well, John Agius decided, okay, that's it, I've had my turn. let's just call it a day and let's get to qualifying, which is where we're going to be heading very soon.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm sure that qualifying is going to be a very interesting affair out there in terms of how these drivers are going to look to try and put together one lap, which puts them in the best possible position for the race. And there are some interesting statistics around it. And roughly, Kieran, it's about 70% from the front row that you can find yourself a victory overall when it comes to all circuits in the world. So qualifying is incredibly important. If you get yourself on the front row, you've got a 7 in 10 chance of winning, which by game theory is absolutely, I want to qualify near the front. It's a lot tougher to work from further back to try and get that victory. But of course, it is a little bit different between series and series. Here, I'd absolutely say at Spa, get yourself in the front 2 rows. Give yourself the best possible chance in qualifying.
Absolutely. Down in towards La Source and then making your way down the hill in towards Eau Rouge and Radion. One of the worst places to be is in the midfield. You have to really go single file there. It takes a brave driver to try and go side by side on the very first lap on cold brakes, cold tyres, heading up Radion for the first time. You'd really rather have it single file and try and use whatever momentum you can gain from that chicane up the Kemmel Straight and on towards Lake Om to possibly make a move there. But here is where it's going to be, well, a very, very live centre. Oh, I can see us, Jake. I don't like it. They've quickly turned that off, so that's good. We're not distracting them anymore. But this is the thing. This is where the live stewarding takes place. That's where the main hub happens. Race control, Jake.
Yeah, welcome to the World Pro Racing Arena. And this is where all the work goes in to assess where penalties and such are looked at, and they get to look at camera angles that we here and you, of course, at home don't get the opportunity to look at. They can go back, they can assess the incident over and over again, time in memoriam, to make sure that a driver is either in a good position or not. And this is going to be one of the worst places here, Kieran, to get a penalty because the pit lane is so long.
Especially if it's drive-through. Absolutely right. I mean, it takes you nearly 3.5 minutes to just cover the pit lane entirely if you just want to make a stop. But running through the pit lane, takes at least a minute. It's a long, long pit lane from start to finish. Yeah, absolutely. The one place you do not want a drive-through penalty. Well, you never want a drive-through penalty, but this is absolutely the worst place to get it because we're running the endurance layout, which of course you can see with all of those orange bollards there. That is your pit lane exit, which brings you just onto the Kemmel Straight. And of course, in the F1 paddock, it brings you just after La Source. So you've got the run down the hill towards Eau Rouge and Radion, but not in the endurance pit lane. You then go through the support pit lane down the hill before you can then rejoin. So that is a huge worry for the drivers if they get themselves a drive-through penalty. So they best be on their best behaviour.
Drivers then on their first flying laps then around the circuit. This is Luke Whitehead, GTWR Go setups, and moving down the hill through the speaker's corner and looking to open up this middle sector of the lap under the total signage, moving through to double gauche. This is an important first lap. The first lap might be the most crucial lap out there of all the laps, Kieran, because it gives you that opportunity to say, I am the pace setter, or I've got to find time. It's a different mindset.
It is. I mean, I do love the mindsets of different drivers, whether they put the lap time down first or they want to make sure that their lap time is the last one so nobody else can beat it. But you always want to try and consider the first one to be the banker lap. Get a lap time down so that you've got a delta to compare to. You'll find on that first lap, there'll be areas you can sweep up. There'll be areas you absolutely hit the nail on the head. And for Luke Whitehead here, he's got to be careful because that number 93 car ahead of him, which would be Amadeo Castorino, well, funny that, the two of them who were fastest in the practice session and separated by just 1/4 of a second in that practice session, find themselves sharing the same bit of track. Here they go then, on to their first flying lap, and I've got to be honest with you, Luke Whitehead is running closer to Castorino than I thought he would. But maybe he's trying to prioritise the slipstream on the way down towards Lake On. But he's, well, that's the reason why. He's actually on a flying lap. A 2:15.9 from Luke Whitehead is the early pace setter, with some times flying in as drivers cross the line.
Yep, so the first times coming in, Luke Whitehead on top at the moment in second position right now is Bernard Bonello, and Dylan De Bono currently third. Here is Devanagraha looking to try and put a time together in the BMW, running over towards the line. That is going to be good enough to a 6th fastest, about 5 seconds adrift then of the fastest time so far. Sheldon Muscat in the Honda goes 4th quickest only, 1.4 seconds adrift then with that qualifying effort. So a bit of work to find, and it's not as if you can tweak the setup easily over the course of this qualifying session, because that takes time, and there's a long outlap around here, Kieran.
A very, very long outlap. I mean, if we're talking about the fast lap being a 2:15 right now, you're looking at an outlap of potentially 3 minutes, maybe more, depending on what traffic you have to come across. Here comes Bertrand Mikalev across the line to start his flying lap as he makes his way now down in towards La Source for that flying lap. He's got McLaren right behind him, I do believe, as well. Making his way now down the hill we go, on towards Eau Rouge and Radion. Ben Norton in the antivirus racing Ferrari. Great team name, I have to say, Ben Norton. I commend you for that one. Here goes 5th fastest. There's someone who's off. Kirsten Abeya in that absolutely gorgeous liveried Ferrari. He's got it wrong on the exit of Blanchimont. Now, that's a terrifying place to lose the back end.
Yep, race car backwards is still race car, so it's very much able to keep that going. And as we all know, race car upside down is expensive. So there's always got to be a little bit of concern out there when they go through, and a spin there, and especially at the fast point on the track like that, can always be a cause for concern. Edwin Law then searching on his opening lap right now in the Lamborghini, trying to search for times, and times are coming in and improving as they go through. Castorino goes 2nd fastest, 2/10 down at this point. Bernard Bonello will look to cross the line and will not improve on that lap. So I would suggest maybe he'll try and maybe escape the car back to the pits, give himself some time to go out and set another attempt out there. Here comes Agius looking to try and put a time on the board. 8th fastest then with a 2:18.2. It's just splitting the 2 McLarens there of Neuwirth and Joffert.
Absolutely, as those first times start rolling in, and it's a very, very crowded last sector at the moment. Multiple drivers trying to find the space, some of them on a flying lap as well. That's just going to be a little bit awkward for those who are on a flying lap. Here comes Audi Devangugara. He makes his way across the line, 15th fastest in that Sim Center E-Racing BMW. Just over 5 seconds away from that pole position time, but there is Sylvie Joffert then sizing up a flying lap in that flat-out racing McLaren. Joffert crosses the line to start a new flying lap, currently 9th fastest. Let's see what he can do on this latest flying lap. Here he goes then in towards La Source, the camera on him right now as we see one car just get well out of the way on the left-hand side. On the descent now, on towards Eau Rouge and Radion here, where the car suspension is really tested. On the rise we go then, through that blind crest. You're really putting the faith in the flags there as you've got a car slightly off on the pit lane exit. But now I think that's going to be that Ferrari we saw earlier on, facing a little bit wrong way. Giving a little bit of a toe to Sylvie Joffert, making his way now on towards Les Combes. Nice and tidy from Sylvie Joffert. We know he's a great driver. He's been racing with World Pro Racing for a long, long time now. We know what he can do here, Jake.
We certainly do. Down the hill on the brakes, and we'll be looking at this as a decent opening sector. Had to deal with a lot of distractions through there. The 2 yellow flags moving through, and still having to try and be aggressive and improve that time. It is only 12 thousandths to improve past Agius out there, and then it's a full half a second to Neuwirth, who is the leading McLaren out there on track. So there is a lot of work, and there is Wojtek Neuwirth out there at the moment. Still got the camera, of course, on Joffert. So Neuwirth is starting a lap, and Joffert just heading through the Fania chicane here. Very interesting chicane, because you want to put the power down off the exit, but it is such a small straight here, Kieran, to move into the campus corner.
Yeah, he struggled with that first part of Le Fania as well. The back end just slightly stepping out on him, and he had to take some corrective action, so that's going to cost him a couple of tenths there. But he now makes his way on towards Courbevoie and makes his way now on towards Blanchimont, that flying left-hander. flat out through here. Absolutely fantastic corner. If you've got the setup right, he now makes his way up towards that final chicane with less than 5 minutes left on the clock. He's got to keep one eye on the clock then, as we see that Hot Pink Racing Nathan Mifsud Honda just pulling off to one side. Sylvie Yoffert then currently 10th fastest, goes up to 9th fastest. A slight improvement from Sylvie Yoffert, although as soon as he got up into 9th place, he was demoted back to 10th.
Yeah, Aquilina and Stramair finding times, and I'll tell you what is staggering right now. It's Honda, followed by 4 Ferraris, then a Honda. It's a quadruple-decker Ferrari sandwich right now at this point. So this is a major, major battle today, and it's clear to me right now, with 4 minutes and 10 seconds remaining in qualifying here, Kieran, that the top 2 manufacturers, it seems today, are Honda and Ferrari.
Yeah, maybe a sprinkling of McLaren in there just from Neuwirth as well. He's doing a great job within 2 seconds of Luke Whitehead. There's Daniel Stramair then in the GTO Omega RPM Esports Ferrari heading down the hill in towards Bussell. Less than 4 minutes left on the clock. As it stands then, Luke Whitehead is on provisional pole position with Castorino in 2nd place, Bonello in 3rd and De Bono in 4th, Norton in 5th, Muscat 6th, Neuwirth in 7th, Stramair 8th, Aquilina in 9th, and Yoffert is rounding off the top 10. But there is Luke Whitehead making his way through in towards the final sector now. Onwards he will go through Stavelot and then through Corbett Paul Flair. Got to be so careful there with that curb. It's very inviting on the exit, but get it too early and you're in the gravel, and that gravel only leads to one direction, that tyre wall, and it's not very forgiving, that tyre wall.
No, it really isn't, and I'm sure that the work that is being done right now from Luke Whitehead, he'll want to improve and give himself as much buffer as he possibly can. He's only got 2 laps after this where he can improve the GTWR Honda out there, so making the run towards the line. Will this be an improvement? It is a 5:15.2, so that's the out lap. This is where he sets up the flyer, so he's got 2 flyers to work with, and Castorino gets a little bit of trouble then to gear up the start of his flying lap, because he's been nabbed through by, I believe, Sheldon Muscat there, jumping forward into his position. You can't sleep out there in qualifying efforts, and he gets right up behind through La Source. He has to put the power down with 2 minutes 23 to go.
Does indeed, but there's Castorino. He does get his way past, and well, he will get another flying lap. It's whether he has the tyres and the fuel to do so as he climbs up through Eau Rouge Radion, now going up the Kemmel Straight, and now he's got a little bit of respite there to decide what he's going to do. Is he going to really attack this lap? Did he lose a little bit of time there? Does he save these tyres, save a bit of fuel to go for one last run right at the end of this session whilst he's still out there? As I think we saw Sheldon Muscat taking the slight escape road there. He's fancied not the chicane there of Les Combes and Malmedy. I'm sure the stewards will be looking at that a little bit because you're not really supposed to do that unless you're trying to get out of the way of the car behind, but didn't lose any position there. So yeah, if that's something he's just done on his own accord, the stewards might not be too happy with that.
Well, he's not on a flying lap, so I wouldn't see what that's a problem for. So that'll be worth it. Amadeo then looking to really try and push through this middle sector, fighting for grip through. Here's Aquilina coming towards the line then. Stays 12th fastest at this moment, 5 thousandths short of Yoffert, who is in 11th. And here is Neuwirth really throwing that McLaren in deep through the first part of the chicane. Had to lose all that time gathering it back up again, looking for the line, and goes 3rd fastest with it. So even throwing that car into the final sector, the McLaren goes 3rd, and by 0.04 of a second clears Bernard Bonello. That's an important time with 40 seconds to go. Dylan De Bono won't improve. Will Luke Whitehead improve, though, making a run towards the line? 15.7 at the moment. It's only a 16.1, so that not working for Luke Whitehead. Still has 1 lap left, though.
He does indeed. And what about Castorino? Amadeo Castorino in the Racing Point La Soluzione Ferrari makes his way across the line. Is there improvement? There is an improvement. It's now 0.073 seconds, and both Luke Whitehead and Amadeo Castorino have one last chance in this saloon. Will they make good of it? Daniel Stramair across the line then, 8th at the moment, 1.6 seconds off the lead at the moment. Here's Cornelius Yacianas making his way through.
Yeah, Yassiunas then trying to find times. The 420 car, not happy with it. Back down in 24th position, the checkered flag out, and may as well finish off qualifying that way, pull the car into the pits. Best female driver right now, Hannah Indiana, 16th position. She's done well in qualifying as Luke Whitehead now looks to attack this middle sector. He knows he's got a buffer margin of not much at all, and that Honda has got to fly. They're both a second quicker than everybody else in the field. Ben Norton across the line stays 5th fastest overall, but Whitehead really has to throw this car through the middle sector in order to build that buffer to Castorino, who has just started to claw and chisel away at that gap like an artisan at this point. Through Fania, the right, then the left, trying to deal with as much balance as possible, nicely across both curves. A lot of AstroTurf, though, on the exit. He's trying to push every margin he possibly can at this point, well up to the outer side of the track there, through Campus Corner and then into Stavolo. And this becomes a case of Chase, who cannot improve on his time, stays 4th fastest overall. Still a handful of drivers who can improve, which does include Sheldon Muscat and Daniel Stramer and Oscar Saristo, who are out there at the back. But it's 21 where the focus is at the moment, on the brakes into the final chicane, looking to get nice and neat through this section to attack over towards the start-finish line, or the finish line as it is. Over the line it will go. That is a 2:15.537, builds the gap up to 0.3 of a second. Castorino, do you have enough to answer back and respond? Answer across the line. No. Would have been enough for pole if Whitehead did not improve on time, but is stuck behind by 0.2. And Sheldon Muscat finds 3rd fastest by 0.06 of a second. A magical last lap where the times all came about in the final stages. What an incredible bit of qualifying that we have just had, Kieran.
Absolutely unbelievable. I absolutely love that. Luke Whitehead, what an astonishing lap. Puts himself, cements himself in pole position. That's one part of the job done. But now we've got a 30-minute sprint race on the way, and we've got 2 drivers at the top of their game battling out at the top. I can't wait.
I can't wait either, but unfortunately we are going to have to, for just a moment, stay with us here at World Pro Racing. We'll be back with the 30-minute race after this.
Niġu bil-PC tagħna u l-monitor fih daqsiex għas missieri ma kien jifilħu. Ħanerġa' ninsa għax weħlet li ma nistax kif ukoll. Wasal iż-żmien li nħolqu programm dedikat tal-esports. Programm fejn ħanitkellmu fuq ħafna affarijiet, edukazzjoni, saħħa, l-industrija tax-xogħol, però l-iktar ħaġa importanti li nippromovu l-esports pajjiżna għaliex intom kapaċi. Mela tinsewniex, esports Plus. niġu bil-PC tagħna u l-monitor fih daqsiex għas missieri ma kien jifilħu. Ħanerġa' ninsa għax weħlet li ma nistax kif ukoll. Wasal iż-żmien li nħolqu programm dedikat tal-esports. Programm fejn nitkellmu fuq ħafna affarijiet, edukazzjoni, saħħa, l-industrija tax-xogħol, però l-iktar ħaġa importanti li nippromovu l-esports pajjiżna għaliex intom kapaċi. Mela tinsewniex, esports plus.
So with the battle of qualifying scored and completed, it is now time to head towards the race. 30 minutes to set the opening scene of this championship into motion. Who will be the contenders at the top? Jake Sperry, Kieran McGinley. Kieran, it is a battle of two at this moment in time, and it's Luke Whitehead who came out on top in the qualifying battle. Will it be the same come race time?
Well, it takes two to tango. That's the phrase, isn't it? And we've got two Titans at the top ready to do battle here in the Ardennes Forest. And it's a very tightly compact midfield and beyond as well, with Sheldon Muscat managing to grab third place right at the death there of the qualifying session. We see these drivers now on their formation lap getting some all-important heat into the tyres and the brakes. This is going to be an important lap. This is probably the longest formation lap they'll get over the entire calendar. So this is the perfect opportunity to try and get plenty of heat into the vitals of the car, give everything a once again. Luke Whitehead on pole position by just over 0.2 of a second ahead of that number 93, Amadeo Castorino, rounding off the front row. Muscat getting ahead of Nerveth by a fraction at the end of the qualifying session there. And through all of the top 10, there's a common theme. There's a lot of Ferraris there.
The horses clearly have left the stable and are prancing around the Ardennes Forest. That much we can say, with the likes of Bonello, Norton, De Bono, Stremer, Saristo, all in Ferraris. Dean Vella back there in 10th position. Not a Porsche car, so to speak, or a Porsche track, but certainly is working. And here is the middle of the field as they descend down the hill through Bruchel's corner. And it just goes to show you how much work is done to keep the heat in the tyres. They are stuck to a speed limit when they go around on their formation lap. This stops all of the differences between drivers who are getting generated heat and not getting generated heat, and keeps the field close together so that they can form up double file for the start of this 30-minute race. So there is always that they're trying to work on. You look down the field, you've got Joffert in 11th, Aquilina 12th, the first of the BMWs. The first Audi is Agius in 13th. Then you've got Law in 14th, Conchabo in 15th. First female driver in Indiana, 16th position, the Norwegian driver is. So you've got yourself a lot to try and focus on as they head through the middle sector here, Kieran, and really look to try and warm up. You can see some snaking from drivers in the middle to the rear of the field, trying to get some heat in the tyres.
I love this colour set of this World Pro Racing Championship. I absolutely love it. Some great liveries out there. Luke Whitehead in the pink machine, the GTWR Go setups Honda, at least Honda for this race, of course, making his way now towards the final sector. And this is where those just last-minute checkovers, that last-minute prep, it all comes down to this, that final straight. And I'm really, really looking forward to this. I have to say, though, Wojciech Neuwirth in the McLaren. I mean, the next McLaren is Silver Joffa in 11th place. That's a fantastic job from the Czech driver in Neuwirth to get it onto the second row of the grid. I'm keeping an eye on him because that McLaren, as we mentioned in the practice session, its main objective, its main benefit is the straight, down the Kemmel straight. Watch out for him on the opening lap. If he can open up the taps, he can make a couple of positions here.
Positions could very easily be made as they now take that run towards Blojbon. The likes of Adi Satya in 17th, Szymon Vajarek in 18th position. You've got Daryl Martinelli 19th. You've got Nathan Mifsud in 20th. You've got Devanagraha in 21st. Kirsten Abeja 27th. Shikinami in 23rd. So there will be drivers who will have that push and will have to work hard through the field. Bertrand Mikalev down there, along with Claven Surgeon Delia, outside of the top 23 in terms of qualifying efforts go. So they've got work to do in this race, but 30 minutes is more than enough time to make it up if you didn't get the qualifying that you wanted. But watch out for that amazing charge towards the last horse hairpin. It's one of the shortest charges to a turn one, but it's going to be about Whitehead and Castorino, and Whitehead really trying to get as much of a launch as he possibly can. Everyone will have to catch up, and as they sit and wait for the green flag to drop, 30 minutes here at Spa is going to be on the way in just a moment, because they do have to wait for that opportunity. And this is what catches a lot of drivers out who haven't done this race before, is the fact you have to wait for the endurance start-finish line, but they will be scored at the start-finish line of the Grand Prix layout. So they will launch off after they go around the last horse hairpin. They will launch off from here and then look to push and go. So that is where they're going to have to wait and be patient for. If those who have done this race multiple times before know how important it is to be patient. They drop down the hill waiting for that green flag to go, and it'll be a long run for the flagman after here. And there's the green, and there is the launch, and it is a great launch here from Castorino, as he will now try and push side by side Upper Rouge, trying to get this sorted. It's going to be a little bit pinched as they go through too wide, as they all fly forward, everybody making it through cleanly through the opening stages, but Whitehead with the pinch getting it done then as they run up towards Lake Coombe for the first time.
Absolutely perfect start for Luke Whitehead, as the battle for 5th place, meanwhile, is yet to be decided, as Bonello under extreme amount of pressure behind as well, as De Bono tries and make his way up the field. But Whitehead and Castorino here maybe looking to work together early on to try and build a gap. Sheldon Muscat getting a good start. Neuwirth then in the McLaren couldn't quite open up the taps there. John Agius runs a little bit deep in towards Brissell. Oh, and there's contact as Agius goes around for the half spin, and then is clattered into by the hot pink racing car of Nathan Mifsud on through Brissell. For Nathan Mifsud, there was absolutely nowhere he could go there. It was over before it really even started. John Agius there got that tap in through Brissell. He ran deep, tried to merge back into the racing line there, and on that first lap it's always going to be tricky there, but the top two trying to break away from the rest of the pack. It's Whitehead from Castorino.
Looks like Devanagraha was involved as well, just got the final tap on the back end, and when you've got 3 cars trying to fight for 2 cars worth of space, there's always going to be trouble. There is Asuka Shikinami, who is out there really trying to make an effort in this Ferrari. She's in 19th position now and has made 5 places off of the start of this race, so has really made progress. Looks like maybe Hannah Indiana got caught out in the early stages as well of this one, so might be a little bit further down the pack as well, but top 2 look fantastic at this moment in time as they charge forward. Luke Whitehead in the Honda behind the Ferrari of Castorino, an Italian in a Ferrari. That is what we call a beautiful combination, as they will now score a lap around this place then and get themselves sorted. On the brakes they go into the last horse hairpin. Here is a driver's eyes perspective as they look to try and push and challenge and showcase exactly what they've got in terms of pace, and they know they'll be ticking these laps off 14 of them they'll be hoping to get through here over the course of this race to say we can absolutely fly up the hill and really fighting with that curb on the inside.
Absolutely. I've always wondered here at the start of the race, here, especially at Spa-Francorchamps, do you prefer to go down in towards La Source, one of the tightest corners on the circuit, or do you then start and try and go for Eau Rouge and Vadillon? I think the run down towards Eau Rouge and Vadillon is the less chaotic of the two of them, because at least you're trying to accelerate with the hairpin. You get, as you said, onto the power, and then you have to instantly get onto the brakes as Sylvie Joffert makes his way up into the top 10. Dean Vella right on his tail, though, going in towards Malmedy. On the run now, down in towards Bruxelles for the second time in this race, as we see right on the rear wing then of Sylvie Joffert in the flat-out racing McLaren, and obviously Sylvie Joffert making his way up a couple of positions as well. A decent start for Silva as he makes his way down the hill then on towards Double Gauche, on towards Pouon, flicking the car in and just hoping that the setup works. Down a gear with a little bit of fuel load on, and there is a 5-second penalty going out to Aquilina. A 5-second penalty that will be added to the end of his race.
It will, and it means you've got to build a gap, and you've got to build it quickly. And Joffert will be looking at the group of 3 just in front. Hannah Indiana way down the order then in 21st position. A shame for her, but she's got her eyes firmly placed forward at this point. There is Cleveland Sturgeon Delia, who will be looking behind at what is, I believe, going to be Yasuinas going down the inside and taking the position away. That will be a nice move then. Sorted, and so Cleveland's going to have to work hard throughout this race to get things all nicely done. There is one car in the pits, it's Daryl Martinelli, so his bad luck from the series before when it came to the multinational championships clearly has followed him into the sprint series. And speaking of following, that's Sheldon Muscat, who's gone around then at the final corners, and he will drop well outside the top 10 with that. The wipers are going and everything, so there's clearly been a panic down there. It looks like Wojtek Neuwirth has been caught up in it because he's scrapping it out through the Lassour's hairpin, and that, I believe, is Dylan de Bono trying to find a pass.
Absolutely. Well, Neuwirth and Vella clearly caught up in towards the final chicane. Then we're going side by side. Dylan de Bono always has the advantage there as Neuwirth tries to go off the track.
Oh, Norton.
It is Norton. You're absolutely right. Norton has spun. Norton is off on the wall, heading out of Eau Rouge and Radillon. That's a terrible place to lose it there, as Neuwirth also gets a 5-second penalty. He'll have to spin that antivirus racing Ferrari all the way around. He's lost a ton of positions. He's lost a ton of time, and he's all the way down to P18, now P19, as Shikanami finds her way past.
Well, you can't miss Ben Norton's car. It's like Norton itself. It's yellow out there. It looks like there's another car that stopped then at that section trap as well. That looks like that's Hannah Indiana in trouble then on the mini map. So she's run into troubles there. But Wojtek Neuwirth, the 5-second time penalty for the incident then with Sheldon Muscat. We didn't see exactly how it happened, but we have seen exactly what it's ended up being. There is Nathan Mifsud down there in the 69 car, 24th position. It's going to be a long road back for the Hot Pink Racing car here today in this race. And there he is right now, just trying to make something happen. And Martinelli will have a stop-and-go 30-second penalty on top of the fact that he's managed to get the car going and is a lap down.
Absolutely, yeah. So we were talking about you don't want a penalty that involves going anywhere near the pit lane. We were just watching there Nathan Mifsud. Of course, he's got that rig, that pneumatic rig around him. Wouldn't have liked to be with him in that crash at Bruxelles, though, because he would have felt that, quite literally, as Dylan de Bono now gets this little bit of double toe. Neuwirth and Saristo then, that Carbon Fox Ferrari trying to break away. Dylan de Bono then on the back of Wojtek Neuwirth, heading our way through in towards Blanchimont, now on towards the chicane. Is there a chance here for de Bono? He will try and have a look up the inside of that McLaren. They run side by side then through the final chicane. De Bono then will try and get the power down earlier, but there's Dean Villa in the Porsche also doing the same now, as de Bono has to turn attack to defence on the way now down in towards La Source with 23 minutes left on the clock, and de Bono has to take a slightly more defensive line. That might leave him slightly open to Dean Vella as they both get the power down. The deluxe racing Ferrari of Dylan de Bono has quickly had to turn this to defence as he now rounds down the hill towards Eau Rouge and then up Radillon. This is a chance for Dean Villa to claw back at least one position in this race.
Yeah, Dean Vella certainly will be looking to try and push against the Ferrari find that pace, but they're all in a similar drafting train, so it's going to be difficult for them to make that time up and get it back. And a few drivers then stuck towards the rear of the field. Not much they can do about it, but the battle is right up there as well. The leaders, Luke Whitehead, by the way, has just broken clear by a second, so he's slowly clawing that gap out and extending it to Castorino. At this point, it's like a rubber band. It's starting to snap a little bit, and once it snaps, goodbye. Luke Whitehead's gone. Wojtek Neuwirth, though, still has his eyes on Oscar Saristo just in front. The Finn holding back everybody at this point in time and doing a good job, but knowing that those two behind, Neuwirth and De Bono, really want to find a way through. Mikolev with a 5-second time penalty added as well.
Yeah, Wojtek Neuwirth then trying to just take different lines than Oscar Saristo. Of course, Neuwirth has a 5-second penalty, so he's got to try and clear Saristo and then try and break 5 seconds clear, which in a quick sprint race like this is never easy to do. There's Ben Norton then, as I think he's got past Oscar Shikanami, which he has. He's now back up into 18th place. Again, didn't see what happened to him at the top of Radion. Then all I can assume is that he lost the back end somehow and ended up into the wall. So how much damage there'll be on that Ferrari, well, it'll all be rearwards. How much aero it's going to add up as well. But he's managed to get back up to P18, and that is something in these sprint races. They happen so quickly. If you get an incident, that's a race. That's really, really just gone against you there. But if you get to the line, you do score points. So it's getting to the line. It's been hectic opening 10 minutes. Who knows what could happen next?
Yeah, the rear does not look planted for Ben Norton, that much I can say. So he'll be fighting that all the way to the checkered flag here at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps on the outskirts of the most famous bike race, or one-day bike race out there, Liège, Bastogne-Liège. There will be a lot of drivers out there trying to push up to the very limit, and who can push that endurance level as they go through. Neuwirth giving chase to Saristo up the hill, then through Radion, and now onto the Kemmel Straight, flicking the car right and trying to gain as much as possible at this stage. You've got Bonello in third, Stremer in fourth. They are on their own at the moment. Here's a look, driver's eyes perspective then from Wojtek Neuwirth out there at this point in time in sixth position. He's got the 5-second time penalty he's having to navigate with, but essentially you've got to drive like you don't have that penalty. You can only drive the race that's in front of you.
Absolutely spot on there. Yeah, that's all he can do. And maybe thinking about, is it worth battling, or should I just sit behind Saristo for now? How quick is he? Is it worth me just sticking behind, getting some consistent lap times on the board, build a gap behind in Dylan De Bono, and see what happens then in towards Pouon, the double left-hander then, as we get back onto the pad. With those slightly heavier cars in qualifying, you are coming down a gear at the least. But yeah, fantastic to see the opening action then. The leader separated by 1.3 seconds. Then you've got that number 20 Ferrari, Bernard Bonello, rounding off the top three. And he's built a bit of a gap between himself and Daniel Stremer in one of the, well, I would say sister Ferraris, but they're technically not teammates. That's a big moment of oversteer for Wojtek Neuwirth then, just on the exit coming out of campus there and onto the curbing. He would have lost a bit of time there, and time losing is not his friend. He does not want to be doing that. Doesn't want to lose that precious toe of Oscar Saristo, because that's just going to put him ever closer into those clutches of Dylan De Bono.
Yeah, it really will, and that will be a bit concerning, having to fight as much at this stage. They're already through a third of this race already, though, so time has absolutely flown, and that's how close De Bono can get to the rear. He gets right up underneath. There he nearly found an opportunity to get through and didn't quite manage it. There have been some good movers, though, in this field. The driver in 10th position is someone I definitely want to focus on, in Gurgly Kunshabo and the number 11 Audi, because that Audi has found its way into the top 10, Kieran.
Yeah, the Hungarian man is doing what he does best. He loves just to race. He races in everything. At any point he gets into a car, he just drives it as fast as he can and has a lot of fun doing it. We see Dylan De Bono then making his way now onto the Kemmel Straight and try and close into the back of Wojtek Neuwirth. Now Dylan De Bono will know that Neuwirth has a 5-second penalty, but that will only help him towards the end in realising, I've already got that position. He'll want even more. He wants a chance to try and challenge Oscar Saristo again. Those Ferraris at the front front. We're pretty much level for pace going in towards qualifying. Now we've got a replay here. This is side-by-side action. This is Sheldon Muscat. Whoa, that's the back end gone, and a little bit of contact there. So that's what would have happened to Sheldon Muscat, and that's big. That's huge then for the. So is that the sole? Well, that's a BMW, an all-black BMW, that's for sure. Was that Voserick there who got caught up in that? Voserick, sorry. Simon Voserick and the number 51 who just got caught up there. Oh, it's a big moment for Neuwirth then. He's lost out on that position to Dylan De Bono. And, well, Jake, take this mic off because you're never getting it back at this rate.
Pressure tells, and for Neuwirth, that was massive. And for Sheldon Muscat, who was trying to recover, that was even bigger out there in terms of an incident. There's not much that you can argue against what happened there, and you'd have to put the blame on Muscat for the fact that he had to rejoin the circuit somehow, and that's how the incident came about. So dramas certainly bring themselves into play. So Voserick, then, the Slovakian, is out of this race. Leaves us 22 then, still running out there at this point in time, and Neuwirth struggling a little bit with the pressure, finds himself then in a little bit more trouble out there. Started to spread themselves out a little bit then in this field. Closest battles just behind Neuwirth, the fight for 8th and 9th, which is effectively on the road, 7th and 8th. Vella having to defend from Joffert just behind through the chicane, doing enough. Clearly the Porsche not the most suited car for conditions here today.
Not as it seems, but Vella's got to keep that McLaren of Joffert behind him as long as he can. In towards La Source they will go. Of course, track and air temperature increasing, so that's going to play a little bit with how much grip the track has, how the tyres are going to be performing and reacting to those changes. We've gone up 4 degrees since we started this race in track temperature. So that's going to be, something the drivers have to think about. Yes, it's a sprint race, but that temperature is climbing, as that is Voserick heading out to the pit lane. Dean Vella and Silver Joffert had to be aware of that. Joffert will have to go the long way round for this 8th place. Dean Vella wants to try and go defensive once again. They head their way now in towards Les Combes. Side by side they go. Dean Vella takes the racing line and hangs on to that position. Good racing for the two of them, but it's Dean Vella who wins this round against Silver Joffert.
Yeah, that was a scary moment between them, with the traffic rejoining the racing circuit up at the top of the hill. You do have to be alert to how much room you give a car leaving the pits, but Dean Vella on the brakes was able to hold on to that position and do more than enough as we tick over halfway here in this race. It looks like more dramas out there for the 227 car then over at, or the 777 car, I should say. So looks like Hannah Indiana is really struggling out there on track and has taken a tow back then to the pits, and the Norwegian having a day that she would much rather forget at this moment in time. Here's Nikolai Aquilina at this moment in time, 11th position, 3-car train that he is in the midst of at this point in time. You've got Gergely Conchabo just in front, and behind that you got Satya, who is pretty much sat there. Adi Satya trying to move up into what is 11th position, and this is an all actually might be the lap traffic just behind, but this is an all-important moment here for Aquilina in terms of this race, especially with Gergely Conchabo just in front. Have to make this move and then find an extra 5 seconds, searching for that inside line at the final corner, but gets it all out of shape. Was lunging in deep but couldn't find any turning.
Yeah, you could see Gergely Conchabo was always going to be shutting that door, and we've got word from race control that the collision between number 25 and number 19 is under investigation. Now that is one of those is Kirsten Abea in the number 19. Number 25 car is John Agius. So that is under investigation. That's the word we've got.
Yeah, Kirsten Abea is dropping down the order, and dropping down the order quickly. He was up as high as 15th, is now down into 17th position. So that is certainly not good at all for Kirsten, who had made great progress and really profited off of the start and being aggressive, made a number of places in the early goings, and we're just getting word that there is no further action between those two drivers. So play on as you were then. Silver Joffert has found his way through on Dean Vella. He is up now into 8th position. That actually, just as we turn away there, Kieran, around goes Kirsten Abea. He's clearly in trouble.
Yeah, you lost it then just on that sort of buffeting point as you head your way in towards Eau Rouge, and the suspension just bottomed the car out. You lose that aerodynamic, you lose the grip at that point, and the car just absolutely spins around as we see then Cornelius Yacianis making his way up. And another back end slipping away. Can he keep that out of the wall? No, he can't. In the background there, couldn't quite see who that was. That's probably the, it's the 911 car.
That's
That 911 is Mikalev. You're absolutely right. So yeah, lots of back ends getting a little bit twitchy going through Eau Rouge and Gladion. It's a very, very difficult set of corners at the moment, but two drivers who are absolutely sailing at the moment, enjoying their time. We haven't seen a lot of them. Luke Whitehead currently leading the way. Let's have a replay then. This is Kirsten Abea, and I believe battling away with the Audi of John Agius then. So as they make their way through in towards Blanchimont, you can see running line of stern now. Through Blanchimont they go. Oh, that was Kirsten Abea getting onto the curbing there, kissing the wall, and that's a Ferrari hugely out of control. Big smash into the wall then. You can see the rear wing takes a huge hit, and that's a horrendous place for a car to stop. I mean, he had no control in how that car was going to stop, but good driving from the drivers behind to make sure they took the line that the Ferrari was not on.
Last time I saw a Ferrari end up in there was Kimi Räikkönen in 2008 in the wet Belgian Grand Prix in the final 3 laps. That's how much of a scary accident that ended up being. Dean Vella, 9th position and still chasing down Joffert, but these drivers are right on the cusp of the 5 seconds to Neuwirth, so Neuwirth racing them, but 4 seconds down the road. So it's important that they don't scrap with each other and they keep the pace up at this stage. That said, Luke Whitehead now out to a 2.5 second lead. I think he's just starting to break away here from Castorino at this point in time, but Castorino is making sure that this is still a race. Whitehead cannot afford to switch off inside the final 10 minutes.
Absolutely. I mean, the two of them have built that gap between themselves and Bonello in 3rd place, who in turn has built a healthy 2-second gap over Daniel Struer, and that really has stabilised for the last 10 minutes for Bonello, so he's in a comfortable position. But Luke Whitehead right now, we know, we've spoken to him before, Jay. Every lap is a quality lap for Luke Whitehead. You can tell him otherwise, but 2.5 seconds at the moment is the gap, and with 10 minutes on the clock, the gap is still increasing in Luke Whitehead's favour. The only thing he'll want to do is keep that up for Castorino, though. As you say, he's got some good pace about him at the moment, but the gap is favouring Whitehead lap after lap.
It is. Here is Dean Vella, though, still trying to hold on to the back of Silver Joffert out there in 8th position. There's not much that can be really argued about at this moment in time, and it is starting to close up as well for 4th position out on track. Daniel Strumer and Oscar Saristo starting to close up, so a battle then for the top 5 to keep an eye out on as Vella moves forward, takes a lot of road out of Stavolo corner and trying to really chase that down. There is the Czech driver Wojtek Neuwirth trying to close to Dylan de Bono. Would still have to make 5 seconds anyway, and you just saw there in the back of the shot that fight for 4th and 5th as Daniel Strumer tries to hold on to a 4th place.
It's going to be tough, isn't it? But that's why we love racing. It's all decided in those split-second decisions. Meanwhile, then, Wojciech Neuwirth is having to try and fight with Dylan de Bono then as they make their way down in towards La Source. De Bono got his way past, but now Neuwirth wants to get back past, and 5 seconds as well added on to Neuwirth's time. So at the moment he will be holding on to that 7th place. He'll want Silvio Joffer and Dean Vella to be battling away, because that means that they're losing time to each other, so therefore his 5-second penalty won't actually affect his race finishing position. As he makes his way now on towards the Kemmel Straight, trying to use that lovely slipstream that Dylan de Bono is doing. Just a Ferrari punching a hole through the air.
De Bono's got to be careful about those track limits. He was really aggressive as he went up through Radion, and we take a driver's eyes perspective for him. I really do want to keep an eye on that battle just in front, though. It's a shame that we haven't seen too much of it because it is really close. But for De Bono, he knows he's there. There is Oscar Saristo right now. He is all over the back of Daniel Strumer, and Strumer is a driver who has gone from strength to strength, and in that Ferrari, he looks really good today, and I'm so proud of him for the way that he's driving that number 9 at this point in time, down the hill to double gauche, and Saristo is just starting to find out, well, if I can make this move, I do have time to chase down the 2 seconds over to the number 20 car of Bernard Bonello. So there is a chance of a podium here if Saristo can get through quickly.
Yeah, that's the key though. He's got to get through quickly, and we know Daniel Stromae in this race has been absolutely on it. He's been fantastic to watch. A little bit of a bite there from the car going in towards campus there. And that's going to allow Oscar Saristo to just close up that gap a little bit more. Saristo, the Finn, in the Carbon Fox Racing Ferrari, now right onto the back of Stromae's tail as they head their way through these left-handers then, and are quickly approaching Blanchimont. Chuck the car in and hope it sticks as you now make your way up towards the chicane. Now, which way will Saristo go then? Down in towards the chicane. He braked slightly earlier there as Wojciech Neuwirth has had an off-track excursion because he's now rejoined. Silver Yoffert's right behind him. Stromae, though, meanwhile, has been passed by Oscar Saristo in that final chicane. So Saristo, the Finn, does get his move there. I think Stromae might have run slightly too deep in towards that final chicane, but because we saw Saristo brake a little bit earlier than Stromae then, he might have used that momentum to his advantage.
Yeah, it definitely could have done. And for Stromae, he falls back into fifth, and now Saristo will attack and look to push forward. But Neuwirth now, he will lose out 2 places if it stays like this. He will fall behind Vela and Conchabo out on track, but not Aquilina because they both have 5-second penalties at this point. Up the hill through Eau Rouge, so we focus on Dean Vela and his push forward as he looks to try and go through the representative for Malta in the FIA Nations Games. He's going to be looking around thinking, well, okay, this is how I can understand how I race against other people who could very much be representatives themselves. Running through, slightly misses the apex there. They go through with about 6 minutes left on the clock, which will be around 3-ish laps at this point. This is still going to be an important race. And I tell you what, Castorino is closing this back up because there is traffic, or there has been traffic. It's now nose to tail.
Absolutely is, and Castorino is absolutely rubbing his hands here. That's the worst possible scenario for Luke Whitehead, who still has the fastest lap of this race, but Castorino has now closed right onto Luke Whitehead's tail here. And for the last 5.5 minutes, I hope you've still got enough popcorn left, because this is going to be blockbuster stuff then for the two of them. They haven't been separated by a lot in qualifying. We saw that as they head their way through Blanchimont. Is there a chance here for Amadeo Castorino to try and take the lead for the first time in this race then? He looks to the left-hand side. Luke Whitehead has to leave the space there going in towards that final chicane. He squeezes Castorino and takes him away from the apex and stays into the lead of this race. But Castorino knows now he's got a tough customer in Luke Whitehead up ahead of him.
That's all fair. Rubbing's racing after all. Dylan De Bono gets a 5-second time penalty, so he'll have that added on to the end of the race at the moment. That means nothing, but for the moment, Amadeo Castorino has to sense a sense of weakness right now. Knows how difficult it is. Vela still searching for his move on Joffert, trying to move up into 7th position. He's not going to find that, but has got through on Neuwirth here, who's fallen back into 9th. No point racing at this point in time between them. In fact, Neuwirth up into 8th position. But here comes Amadeo around the outside in the Ferrari with the grunt, getting that one sorted. So Amadeo Castorino has waited 25.5 minutes to take the race lead, and now he's just got to hold on for 2 laps.
Absolutely, as he makes his way now down in towards Bruxelles for, well, what might be the penultimate time. We'll have to wait and see. There you can see race control, the collision between 517 and 63. There's a time penalty of 5 seconds going to the 517. That's Dylan De Bono. So that's going to be a huge effort for Dylan De Bono if he wants a real one in this race. Silver Yoffert is 6.1 behind, so he should be able to try and get that through. But Daniel Stromae, meanwhile, fancies reopening this fighting chapter between himself and Oscar Saristo here. This battle for 4 is far from over.
Absolutely is far from over. Everywhere you look, there's a battle. Conchabo on the brakes, gets it all locked up, going down the hill at Bruxelles, and Dean Vela breathes a sigh of relief because that was very nearly a Porsche pointing in the wrong direction. So for Gergely Conchabo, he's got work. Stromae now will be looking at this, trying to figure out a way through. And that gap now is 2 seconds between Castorino and Whitehead. So Whitehead's really lost the time in the number 21. May have had a mistake trying to hold off or trying to keep the pace up on this lap. And Castorino, I think's just been given the gap that he wants. But Stramair now trying to chase back that 4th position that he's lost. Would absolutely love this 4th place. Drivers I suspected them with the GT Omega car trying to chase down the Carbon Fox machine just in front. The 2 Ferraris battling, so it's exactly identical with the way that they push. Maybe some slight setup tweak differences as they now hit the brakes, but it's getting a bit trafficky just in front. So there is an advantage here as they will have 2 laps to go at this point from when the leader crossed the line.
I wonder if Luke Whitehead has just chewed through his tyres, because now the gap is 3.5 seconds. He's lost a second and a half in one sector alone. I wonder if Luke Whitehead's tyres are simply gone, and he's still got to run 2 laps on them. So that is a huge concern for Luke Whitehead. And you've got to feel, though, that Bernard Bonello will be having a look at this. He's gaining a bit of time to Luke Whitehead, who's seeing, let's see what the latest sort of gap time between himself and the leader is. It's 5.7. Yeah, Luke Whitehead's tyres are absolutely finished. In fact, he's slow down the Kemmel Straight. Bonello is closing in on him and has made the pass for 2nd place. I saw that on the map. Luke Whitehead is oh, sorry, no, that's the number 19. Sorry, everyone. Sorry, got caught up in the action. Luke Whitehead is 20. I'll put that as a sticky note on my monitor next time around. Luke Whitehead 21. But no matter, he's 5.7 behind. That's huge. Bernard Bonello here, 14.4. But that gap, if these tyres are getting worse for Luke Whitehead, it's going to get more and more worst case for Luke Whitehead here.
Is it tyres or fuel? That's the next question I'm looking at. Is it tyres or fuel? Because if it's fuel, as that is lap traffic very nearly finding the barriers there at Speaker Corner, if it's fuel, then it's going to be concerning, because this is the longest lap, one of the longest laps on the calendar. Mount Panorama very close to that. So if it's going to be a fuel issue and they know they're tight on time, you're still going to have to go another 7 kilometers and 4 meters here, Kieran.
You're right, that's fuel. That's fuel. Luke Whitehead is running in the highest gear possible. He's trying to save as much fuel as possible. You've hit the nail on the head there, Mr. Sperry. That's a fuel concern, and that is going to be Bonello here. Well, what's the gap now? 9.4, and he'll still have another lap to run. This is going to be the longest 7 kilometers for Luke Whitehead, who'd been leading the race for 24.5 minutes. Now, his chance of a podium is under serious threat.
This is what makes or breaks seasons. The fact that you've got to get the numbers right when you do it. Castorino will start the final lap then of this race and knows he's got a fantastic margin out in front. There is nothing that can be done to stop him. His gap is 1/4 of a minute at this point. The gap behind to Bonello, between Whitehead and Bonello, is 6 seconds. That is more than enough to catch in the final stages, and Saristo and Stramair might have some instrumental part to play here in the final lap of this race. Castorino then running up the Kemmel Straight into Lake Coombe. The question now is 21, and he will be caught hand over fist here, Kieran, on this straight.
He will. He'll be caught on this straight. As you said, Bernard Bonello here will be trying to sail past. You see 6th gear for Luke Whitehead, just trying to coast it home. There goes 2nd place. Bernard Bonello moves up into 2nd place, and right behind him is Oscar Saristo then, making their way through in towards Lake Coombe and Malmedy, and there's absolutely nothing Luke Whitehead can do to try and defend this one. Back onto the power he goes. Oscar Saristo here will see that Luke Whitehead is struggling. He'll take his time trying to take that position. There's no problem for it. Daniel Stramair might have a chance to move up into 4th place as well. This has gone horribly wrong for Luke Whitehead. But if you're Oscar Saristo here, you're onto the podium.
Yeah, absolutely, and we haven't quite seen it, but the move has been conducted, so thank you very much. There it goes, but here is Amadeo Castorino, who just had to sit in and wait. Didn't have the early pace in comparison to Luke Whitehead, hasn't had the 1 lap pace, but it's not a race of 24.5 minutes, it's a race of 30. Whitehead now back to 5th, and that'll be De Bono through in 6th, and De Bono's got to make 5 seconds now in the final sector of the race if he wants to take that 5th place away. So he's got that to think about, but for Castorino, Amadeo Castorino, we've got a championship on our hands, and what a brilliant victory this is for the Italian. Victory here at Spa, and welcome to the World Pro Racing Sprint Series. Fantastic.
What a drive from Amadeo Castorino there. Brilliant stuff. And Well, he had enough fuel to make it to the end, had the pace to do it as well. Castorino takes the first win of the championship. Bernard Bonanno then makes his way through the final chicane, back onto the power towards the checkered flag. He will finish second place in the MLT Ferrari, and Oscar Saristo will round off our podium in the Carbon Fox Racing machine. The top 5 at the moment, it seems, are all going to be Ferraris. Where's Luke Whitehead going to finish when he eventually does cross the line? He does cross the line now. No, he's not going to make it. He's not going to make it. I don't believe this is his Jensen Button at Hungary 2000 vibes. That's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Luke Whitehead won't finish.
Look at all those points that are dripping away as drivers look to cross the line. Luke Whitehead will just be shell-shocked, and he looked shell-shocked there as he just stared at that line, which was maybe 100, 150 meters maybe away from him, 150 yards even. It was only a par 3 away from the finish of this race, but that's going to go down as a lot of point drop here today. And the final few drivers then will be making their progress. I think 23 as well is out of fuel. That might be Joffert who is out of fuel too. So take a look on this straight. Joffert is going to be slow. And I think a lot of drivers have underestimated the fuel. Yep, that's Silver Joffert. He's out of fuel as well. So there'll be a lot of work to do to get them all over the line at the finish. And yeah, I'd have that look as well if I ran out of fuel, Kieran.
That is a picture that paints 1,000 words, isn't it? For Silver Joffert, just didn't quite make it. Not enough fuel on board. But for Devan Nagara, he gets 2 positions. Easy as that across the line. But he had fuel concerns as well. That is the picture that sums it up all, though. Luke Whitehead will not finish this race. He will be classified, of course. But as you say, that's a lot of points lost. And I think it's going to be P17 if they're all finished behind him. But what a day for Amedeo Castorino, second to first, and my oh my, what a dramatic final 5 minutes we had. 2 cars out of fuel before they reached the line. Luke Whitehead sensed he was in trouble, and what was looking like a comfortable victory for him, fastest lap 2, is shy of just about 30 metres.
30 metres, sometimes it's all it is. Get out and push at that point. Nigel Mansell. Someone put that into sim racing where you can Nigel Mansell push your car over the line if you've run out of fuel just short on the final lap. But that is a real shame to see his race end like that. But what a win for Amedeo Castorino. That is pretty much everything that you want and then some. It's a massive gap at the end, but you take the luck, you take the roll of the punches as and when it happens, Kieran. And when you consider that they're heading to Alton Park, which is a very small circuit, tight circuit, difficult to pass circuit, not fuel-intensive circuit, it's a completely different challenge next week.
Absolutely, and that is a place where qualifying is critical. I mean, it's as you say, a narrow circuit. Overtaking is tricky in these GT cars. Not impossible, but the fast-flowing nature of it makes it very tricky to get any moves done. And, well, I'm thoroughly looking forward to having the next chapter in this championship. What a way to kickstart it.
What a way to kickstart it indeed. And I believe you're stood by with a driver who managed to get themselves onto the podium late in Oscar Saristo.
Yes, Oscar, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Oscar, well, I mean, I have to talk to you about the final few minutes first of all, because one of the big headlines is Luke Whitehead ran out of fuel on the final lap, meters from the line. It allowed you onto the podium. How are you feeling?
Surprised. Extremely surprised. And that's about it, honestly.
Okay, let's talk us through the start then, because it looked a little bit hectic. You tried to make yourself a couple of positions. You had some great battles with some Ferraris out there. You looked like you enjoyed yourself.
Yeah, it was pretty good. Not the car that I normally drive, but just a pretty good drive. All in all, start was a bit messy, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Sorry to talk over you there, but we're just watching on these slow-mo replays because this was a battle you had a lot on your hands. You battled with Daniel Stremer. You got the move done into the final chicane. Talk us through that move.
I don't know. I think he messed up his braking a bit, and he went extremely wide in the first part, and then I just got past him. I think that was, I don't know what happened. I just honestly think he just missed the braking spot a bit.
On to your first podium then. I mean, how are you feeling? How does that set you up for your season up ahead with Alton Park next up?
It's a good place to start the season. It's way higher than I expected because faster guys are behind me. So I'll just try to do my best and see where it takes me.
That sounds like a good season plan. Oscar, congratulations on your podium. We'll leave you to celebrate and enjoy the moment. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I believe, Jake, you're standing by your next driver. Who's the next driver, Jake?
It's the driver who finished second overall, and that was Bernard Bonello. Bernard, that for you probably was the quietest race I think you could have had in a long time. Not much really to talk about for about 28 minutes, and then all of a sudden, it looked like Luke Whitehead slowed up in front of you, so you found yourself up an extra position into second. It looked like a quiet race for you.
It was basically a race of just staying out of trouble. That describes it all. I mean, at the start everyone was losing control in front of me, so that was quite... I had the front seat, to have all the action in front of me, but yes, for me personally it was quite a quiet race. I'm very happy with the result. I think I'm quite far ahead of where I should be, especially in the last lap when I saw Luke which was slowing down because of fuel, so that made my last lap interesting. Yes, but overall I'm very happy with the result.
In terms of car choice then, and how this series is a different car each time you go, you can only use the same car once once, with the exception of one time where you can use it twice. How do you feel your racecraft is set up to these parameters and these rules? Have you thought out exactly what car you're using for each track, or are you looking at it at a week-to-week basis?
Yeah, I'm testing. I mean, some of the tracks are more used, let's say, and more known from most of the drivers, including myself. So some of the tracks, for example, Spa, which is a historical race, everyone was set up, let's say, I believe, and geared for this race, while other tracks like Alton Park, for example, is more on the discovering side, especially with the last patches and tire models, who changed the cars a lot. So yes, it will be a week of discovering now, and we'll see again in 2 weeks' time what we can do on track.
Well, 55 points in your back pocket. Anyone you like to give a thanks to then?
Yeah, my mate for sure, which is Dylan Dabono. Call out to Dylan Dabono, which we trained together. So for sure, I want to call out to my friend, which was racing today as well. Unfortunately, he didn't have a good race. He got mixed up in some of the challenges that were on track. However, yes, I'm sure that he will be up there with us in the coming races.
Well, Bernard Bonello, what an incredible drive from you. Second position overall, and every reason to be excited going to the second round.
Thank you very much.
No worries at all. And we do have as well our race winner with us, Amadeo Castorino. Now, Amadeo, that for 24.5 minutes was the race just slowly falling away. And then all of a sudden it looked like the numbers for Luke didn't add up and the numbers for you did. Was it all right on the night for you?
Good evening, guys. And yeah, the race is very strong because Luke have a very good pace, especially with the Honda. On the first sector, he literally flying because on the exit on turn 1, he gained like 2-3 tenths. And in the second sector, I'm a little bit faster, but on the whole lap, he's like 2 tenths faster than me. And I think he finished the fuel, and for this I can gain the position. But yeah, I think this is a good championship because our level is very good, and the other guys of the grid is also very fast.
It looked like you and Luke were in a completely different bracket to everybody else today. Do you feel like that's going to be similar or different when you consider it will be a new car and a new challenge at a new track 2 weeks from now at Alton Park?
Yeah, I think the level can change, especially in Alton Park, because it's a very typical circuit. And I don't know, because I raced very few time in this track, and I don't know what expected from that race.
Well, a lot of study for you coming up, but championship lead after one round. How are you going to look to build on that momentum of being the championship leader, the driver everybody wants to beat?
Yeah, I think I have to not do error for maintain my position, because I know Luke is very fast, and it's not easy to maintain championship leader, but I try.
You try, and that is all that we can ask from you, Amadeo. Before we let you go, anyone you'd like to thank a victory here at Spa? Well, I believe nobody to thank then here at Spa-Francorchamps from Amadeo Castorino, but a victory nevertheless for him and an incredible performance. Kieran, final thoughts before we bring things to a close then here from what is the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps?
Do we have to wait 2 weeks for the next? No, I
Yes.
thoroughly enjoyed today. Absolutely brilliant stuff. I mean, just the right amount of drama to kickstart this season. 2 drivers here were at the top of their level. One couldn't quite make the numbers last, just 30 meters short, and a great battle throughout the midfield. Couple of incidents here and there, especially on lap 1, but what a way to kickstart this championship. Thoroughly looking forward to getting even deeper in the next chapter.
Absolutely. That'll be coming along 2 weeks from today on Friday. So make sure that you check that out, be it wherever you're watching it, on Facebook, on YouTube, or by ESTV, the Esports Television Network, or TVM Sport. It'll be absolutely incredible to see the racing action that'll be coming along forward. From Kieran McGinley and myself, Jake Sperry, it's been a pleasure to bring you the opening round of the championship. Luke Whitehead falls 30 meters short of the finish, and it allows for victory overall. Amadeo Castorino takes the championship lead, but it's a long season yet. There are no guarantees on who will win and who will lose, and it's a different track, for most a different car, and for this championship a different scene. We'll see you then in effectively Cheshire in 2 weeks' time.
Niġu bil-PC tagħna u l-monitor fih daqsiex, għas missieri ma kien jifilħu. Ħanerġa' ninsa għax weħlet li ma nistax kif ukoll. Wasal iż-żmien li nħolqu programm dedikat tal-esports, programm fejn nitkellmu fuq ħafna affarijiet, edukazzjoni, saħħa, l-industrija tax-xogħol, però l-iktar ħaġa importanti li nippromovu l-esports pajjiżna għaliex intom kapaċi. Mela tinsewniex, eSports Plus. niġu bil-PC tagħna u l-monitor fih daqsiex, għas missieri ma kien jifilħu. Ħanerġa' ninsa għax weħlet li ma nistax kif ukoll. Wasal iż-żmien li nħolqu programm dedikat tal-esports, programm fejn ħanitkellmu fuq ħafna affarijiet, edukazzjoni, saħħa, l-industrija tax-xogħol, però l-iktar ħaġa importanti li nippromovu l-esports pajjiżna għaliex intom kapaċi. Mela tinsewniex, eSports Plus.